A good one that's well past its expiry date is when I was working in North Dakota. There was a school board election, basically, or a school board matter, where the school board had illegally met in secret, which is against quorum rules. That is conspiracy. They didn't even realize it yet because they're just dumb. A lot of people don't realize they're committing conspiracy. They had met in secret without or made a quorum in secret, which they're not allowed to do. By the way, if you're an elected official on a board type elected, don't go and meet with the people that are on the board ever. They're not your friends anymore. Even especially if they were before, they're not supposed to be. If you guys don't, let me just educate you on politics real quick. If you are an elected official that is of a board type, usually a legislative type, but you can be also an executive type. But if you have to, if you and another group of people meet and a certain amount of that group of people get together at the same time, it's called a quorum. You cannot create quorum outside of the official area without either the express permission of the ruling body that you're a part of. Basically, you guys have to vote to give yourself authority to meet that way, i.e. you're going to have an award ceremony or something. It has to be covered under the bylaws, or you are actually doing an illegal meeting out of the public eye. Now, if you live in a different country, that's not the case. It's not the case. These people didn't realize that calling each other on a group telephone call is creating a quorum because you're all in the same place digitally. You have created a quorum. Your group text with everybody else is a quorum. You can't have conversations about official business or meet officially and not have the public be available, which fucking sucked for other people that have done that, I've seen, because their personal cell phones became state property or city property, or at least, if not property itself, searchable, which is not what you want because all your porn. Just remember that if you ever get elected. But I hate that shit. That was the conspiracy. The non-conspiracy was a person that was afraid of losing their, basically their connection. They were a union official, actually. It was the teachers union official that was in the area. It was like, hey, I need to tell you that these people have been meeting illegally. I just want you to not put my name in the paper because they're trying to fire this teacher because one person just basically just doesn't like him. And then I went and covered the thing. I asked them and they're like, how do you know that? And I said, I can't say. I didn't lie about it. I can't say for the protection of that person. I won't reveal my source. Literally, that is how you do that. And in that case, the duplicitous is just basically me going against my actual moral framework because it's literally still doing a bad thing. You're being conspiratorial. You're doing shit in the shadows. But in this case, specifically, it's for a good end. That's the reason. So, I'm telling you right now, this is me just saying it. I will fucking leak a DM in a heartbeat. Never share anything with me that's untoward, that is illegal. Don't try to drag me into your little fucking your little fucking knitting clubs and shit. I cannot take it. I cannot take it. If somebody tells me something in confidence because they're at risk or because they're going to be working on it, sure. But if you are fucking behind the scenes, lying, trying to establish shit against people, don't even involve me. I'm just telling you right now. This is me protecting myself from you ahead of time. Literally, I will rat. I will lie the second you fucking tell me. I will fucking tell everybody. I don't give a shit. I don't fucking have any sense of loyalty to random strangers on the internet who I might get a fucking 100 sub boost. Like, it's just not worth it, right? I'm not in that dire straits. Is it illegal to host game night every week with the Board of Education if you make it an official meeting open to the public but never tell anybody except the board? The way that you phrase that, no. So an official public meeting has to be announced. So if you don't tell anyone but the board, it's not an official public meeting. It is a secret meeting. You have to announce it. Some of these things are like, okay, well, who gives a shit kind of deals. And then that's what will happen. But some of these things are actually legitimately prosecutable. Not like it always happens or it will happen. But if you have a red AG and a blue city council or vice versa, and someone wants to make a name for themselves, some of these things are literally prosecutable. It's not like prosecutable that you might be used to, like someone's going to go to fucking jail, but they can use the prosecutorial authority of the AG or whatever, however it's established in your locality. they can use their authority to basically say, like, you have to whatever. You have to say everything that you said in that meeting. You guys have to have another meeting. You have to vacate all of your decisions over these kind of periods of times. You have to go before a judge and explain yourselves. You have to, at some cases, like this is there's other types of law other than strictly civil and criminal. There's also I can't remember how to say it right, but basically operational law. That's outside of tort and criminal stuff. The operations of the internals of the government, there's a way to say this. If you as a civilian sue them, that would still be kind of like in civil court. The government sues itself all the fucking time. You guys just never really see it because you don't know how to look for it. You don't think it matters, but it does. And so like those are things that can happen. And so basically you can have the city, so I've literally seen the state of like, I think it was the state of North Dakota versus the state of North Dakota. I've seen the state of North. Usually, when you hear the state of, it usually means the state prosecuting authority, so the state attorney general. But it can be other ways too. I've seen one of them was, I think it was the state of North Dakota versus the Williston Board of Parks and Recreation. Don't quote me specifically on that. But like, this isn't like a big, like, oh, fuck, they got him. It'll literally be like a little teeny tiny weensy court case that doesn't even need a jury or anything. But like, you have to file it. That's why they're legal filings. So it's like this person versus this person. We want mediation. We want resolution. The state AG has found after referrals that they did violate certain conducts, blah, 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 blah. This is required reporting. And we are sending this to the judiciary for oversee. And then like whoever, at the state judiciary will pull it up, look at it. Okay, it looks like you guys violated quorum by meeting here at this time because all 5 of you happened to run into each other at Stuckey's and decided to sit down together. And during that time, you fucking talked about the new walkway that was I'm making this up. This is not really happened. Similar things happen. I don't want to, let's just pretend I'm talking about a fake state. I don't want to infer that this is a specific case, but this is kind of what it sounds like. When you guys met at Stuckey's and you sat 2 tables over, and this is how these things will sound. It'll sound this fucking crazy. Like, so you will confirm, Councilman Roberts, this is a fake person. You will confirm, Councilman Roberts, that you took a seat at the third from the window, which was a bench seat, and you were sitting with Councilman Serrata and Councilman Alphonse. Like, yes, I was sitting there. And then at that time, shortly afterward, Councilman D'Angelo and Councilman Everett walked in, at which point you did actually constitute a quorum when they sat at the benches near you. They were sitting at, and you can confirm this for us, Councilman Everett, you were sitting at bench 1 directly in the center line aisle where you had a direct line of sight with them. Yes. Did you acknowledge each other and did you recognize each other as fellow council members? Please answer down the line, like, yes, Your Honor, 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 all that. And then like, do you understand that that is a violation of whatever it'll sound, something like North Dakota quorum or North Dakota law regarding the formation of a quorum in regards to local administrations. You guys, as this type of administration, are this type of locale or this type of thing, and your quorum was any gathering of 5 or more of the 9 members of your thing. Yes or no. Did anyone speak about business? Yes, sir. I actually did discuss the building of the thing. So do you understand that you guys were out of quorum and that you're going to have to do these remedial actions? Like, yes, sir. Yeah, blah, blah. Now, if it's like one of those things that it has to be on the record, so like more than likely that though this is bad, and this is something you can make, if you want to make your fucking local council person's life a living hell, I will give you dollars to fucking donuts they meet out of quorum or make illegal quorums all the fucking time, because people don't know. They just don't know the laws that govern them. They don't know that they can't do that. They will fucking get on group texts. They will have group chats. They will have group calls. they will say like, hey, well, why do you guys, I don't want to go downtown to City Hall to do the whole meeting on Tuesday. No one's going to be there anywhere. Do you guys just all want to come by my office and we can like write this down and send it into the clerk? Not knowing that's completely fucking illegal. It's completely illegal for a lot of good reasons. Funnier if this took place at a strip club. You say that. Shit like that actually has happened. It's usually most of the time that these happen where they're not extreme. It is because people meet together. They don't realize, because you kind of become personal friends to a degree, unless you become enemies with one of the council people. And sometimes like everybody becomes enemies with one council person. And it could be 5 really good people, 5 of the most lefty, I want these motherfuckers running everything, and they all hate a literal fascist and decide that they don't want to hear him complain at a council meeting anymore, because every time they get together at a council meeting, they want to talk about parks, and then he starts just literally screaming Heil Hitler at the top of his lungs for 20 fucking minutes, and whatever, blah, blah, blah. They're just upset about it. So like, can we just meet off, and then we'll talk about this, and then we can hurry up and vote when we get into the session? You might, as a person, think that that's okay. It's completely illegal. Don't do it. Completely. Actually, that's like hyper illegal. That's one of the few. That is conspiracy to undermine the electorate. And I think that might be not electioneering. That's like, I think that might be a type of racketeering, depending on what you know. That's, ask a constitutional law person. That's their specialty, especially local constitutional law. That is specifically how it works a lot of the time. All my fucking friends over there in Chicagoland, this is why your entire fucking state sucks. They go and they meet or they talk out of battery, out of school together and make quorums, decide what they want to do, and then they go into the area and then they hurry up and they vote on it and they go, which completely removes a lot of steps of legislation, especially at the local level. Now, you might be saying to yourself, wow, it's crazy, because doesn't the like entire American legislative electorate do this? And yeah, and that's why they're bad. They create little fucking stuff, but they're not actually hitting quorum, but they are basically, they're edging fucking constitutional violations on an almost day-to-day basis. A lot of that shit, it's not necessarily illegal, but the reason it's not illegal, or it was illegal and isn't anymore, is because they fucking decide to make it not. And it can be pretty crazy, but for local legislations, that's usually, or local legislators, usually that's something that they do, and a lot of them don't even realize it's wrong, or they don't care. And if you had like the good old boys, they'd all go and hang out at the fucking, courtroom bar or whatever the fuck have you, and they're all hanging out there having a good old fucking time, and then they get drunk, and then they go downtown and they all say like, yeah, we're gonna vote on this real quick. But you're supposed to be taking like public input and shit. Those secret quorums, they start small. I'm describing literally the closest to above board version of them, but the bad ones usually look more like this. You have somebody that's a developer, they come into town and they say, hey guys, I don't really want to go through the development process. Let me take you all out golfing. And so you get the entire electorate out golfing together. And then while you're out there in the middle of nowhere where people can't hear you as well on a golf course, it's like, hey, look, we want to get this thing. I'm willing to grease your guys' coffers. We'll overpay or we'll underbid or something like that on this contract if you guys give it to us. So we'll bid way lower. Our actual price is probably going to be more in the ballpark of like 25 to 35 mil, but anybody else is going to be 25 to 35 mil. We're going to help you guys skip the paperwork. Just tell us ahead of time what the lowest bid is going to be. We'll make sure that we put it $1 under there. You can run us through, and then we'll fill out all the necessary paperwork. How's that sound? Speed everything up. And then, everyone's going to be happy with you. Insane collusion. Crazy illegal. Crazy fucking illegal. You just ended the bid process for somebody for convenience sake. And sometimes on top of that, there's bribes and kickbacks. But even that, I kept the most illegal stuff that might happen alongside of it out. That is a fucking actual crime. That specifically is corruption. That's what the FBI goes after. People don't realize, because it doesn't sound that bad. That doesn't sound like corruption, right? Hey, we're trying to save the city money. We're trying to save you money. Let's skip the bid process. We're all going to cost the same. We've given you the paperwork, because the company's going to try to look as above board too. We've given you the paperwork. We've given you the paperwork so that we're going to cost as much as any of these other outfits. Let's just skip the thing. You guys tell us the second. We have 15 versions of this form. We're going to print up the last one that has our full calculation on it. We can lower the number in all of the forms, so it'll all look above board. You guys just tell us what the lowest bid is. We'll go a few dollars underneath there, and then we will get it done and through. And, you know, because you've worked with us before, everything will be fine. And if you end up overspending, we'll try to like put that money back into the city. You know, we'll grease your palms this way, that way. Or even just fuck it. We'll just skip the bid process. That is a literal crime, like a crime, but it happens all the fucking time. A lot of people don't know it's illegal because people get elected under the auspice of, hey man, and you know, lefties are not immune to this either. It happens just as much. Actually, I think it would happen as much, if not sometimes a little bit more, with any fucking group of people that's more politically motivated in a moralistic sense than they are for a I actually want to improve the world sense. To put it in perspective, there's a lot of things I don't like about I'm really important rhetoric, or his kind of the way that he parses different things. But I would trust that guy in office probably like 10 to 15 times more than I would any other lefty streamer I can think of immediately, because that guy actually knows how policy works. Like, and it's more than just like policy being like, hey, we wrote the law down before we started doing it. Like, the guy actually understands that there's procedures that are in place for different things, and he tries to understand them. Sometimes I think he's maybe a little bit self-duplicitous, and sometimes he's absolutely wrong on shit, but I have to give the guy credit for knowing how the fucking system works. Because I'll see people like trying to call him out, or him responding. He's like, they're trying to, hold on, I gotta do I'm really important, hold on. It's almost like they're trying to tell me these things, but I don't really understand what they're going for. I don't know what they mean. I don't think they've looked it up. That guy's legit. Even if you don't agree with him, I highly recommend watching some I'm Really Important content here and there. He's one of my go-tos because it's like, I guess I'm a boomer now, and it's like turning on fucking CNBC in my background. Just, it's straight up. But like that's very important. And people that are highly emotional about getting elected and that do, it's very similar. Like, don't think that because you're not Donald Trump, you won't be as incompetent as him because you're on the other side of the aisle. He didn't give a fuck about anything. He just wanted to get elected. And then he just doesn't understand any of the legal procedures and won't listen to the people that are telling him. Because if you take a lot of the mentality that lefties have, where they're like, well, you should just do it because it's morally correct, and blah, 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 you'll end up completely annihilating your entire platform before you get anything done, because you've talked yourself into a position where you're like, as long as I do the morally right thing, my people will support me, and then I can probably keep doing the moral thing, right? And it's like, no, man, you fucking broke quorum law because you met with like all of these people and did this thing. No, dude, you literally got bribed. I don't know if you got bribed. Hey, you're putting on this, you're doing this thing, right? We're voting to put in a park, right? We're voting to put in a park. Okay, cool. Hey, I'm the guy that's running the park building process. I would like to throw a private lunch to say thank you to all you people. And then you find out the private lunch was like $25,000 or some local people that attended, and you just didn't report it because you didn't even know that you had to report it. But it was the certain money threshold, and it was not open to the public. It was just a personal party thrown to you by somebody who's got a construction contract. You're like, what? I've been bribed? And everyone's like, yeah, man, you've been bribed. You took a $25,000 bribe. Sorry, man. Whoops. You guys wonder how sometimes like lefty types get elected and shit, and they get blown out, and it's not because of the pie in the sky dreaming and shit. That's good. But you understand, like, the little bit of power that you get from getting elected does not make all things possible. Like, there's too much. How to describe this? There's too much sense of basically power scaling. I'm reaching here. Basically, there's too many people that are politically powerless, right? So many people that are politically powerless, and that's why you kind of come to the left. Sometimes why you go to the right. And that political powerlessness you articulate it in your heart as, because I don't have the power, certainly everyone who is not me has all of what I don't have. And you get in your mind that if you just usurp them, now you will have all of the power that they have and that you don't. But it's a false equivalence. Like, just because someone can do something that you can't doesn't mean that if you knock them off that you'll be able to do that thing. They are also extremely limited, which is the best thing about our type of government, is that you can't just vanguardize and just whatever whim you have start doing, which is why we do not have as many, by far, swallow famines in America, despite all of the good things. We really don't have very many famines at all in America. We had the one from over-tilling back in the 1920s that happened to coincide with some of the worst fucking drought weather and a big population boom and in a series of other issues, but that's since been very, very mitigated. I'm talking about the Dust Bowl. A lot of issues that went into that. Red tape, it's not even red tape. Red tape is bureaucratic obstructionism. And a lot of time what people consider it as red tape is actually good ideas, because half the time red tape is just filling out forms and knowing how the system works. Literally. It's one of the reasons that you absolutely, if you have no familiarity with the legal system, absolutely hire a lawyer. Hire a lawyer if you're even going to fucking try to like look up law documents, as far as I'm concerned. But if you have a little bit more expertise, you can at least kind of mitigate the exact moment where you're going to need one, because you know where the shark's water is. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that you know how to fucking or could beat a shark. That's what real lawyer shit is. A lot of times it's really just not understanding the entirety of the system that you're a part of. Like, it's just not understanding it, which is what I get frustrated by all the time, because people say stuff on the left that just has no basis in reality. And it's not me being upset about, like, you know, utopic socialism. I don't even care to have that argument, because that's pointless. That's shit for Vosh 2020, arguing with somebody that doesn't wipe their ass and does Nazi salutes every day. I'm talking about specific things like thinking that a small action will have this specific consequence without actually showing the work of showing how that will accomplish what you think it's going to accomplish, and then saying like, well, you know, ideologically it feels like we're going to get here and we're going to get this done. Like, you know, you think that you're going to create a walkable city. This is a great one. This is perfect. This is perfect. Let me tell you why walkable cities are not going to be something that happens in your lifetime, or at least not anytime soon. First off, a lot of your cities right now in America are becoming walkable and have been for a decade or more. And that sounds insane. And you're like, well, why is it not walkable now? Because there is something in the world called time. And that is the actual currency of accomplishment, is time. You know, the road that you drove on last took probably in the ballpark of something like anywhere between 3 and 15 years, if not sometimes way, way, way longer to get accomplished. A good one, if you live in Kentucky, is the Coal King Highway, right? Coal King Highway going out of eastern Kentucky into western West Virginia in the south-ish. The Coal King Highway has been under construction in different ways for the better part of it. If anyone from that region can correct me, but for the better part of something like 40 years, certain parts of it for 20, certain parts of it for 10. The whole project conceptually goes back to the coal era, the Coal War era, because basically Appalachia's full of mountains. The coal is on the other side of inside of the mountains, and you want to get it outside of the mountains. So roads, trains, highways, all that shit. That's what that highway should have done. And it's taken forever because you got to blow up fucking mountains to get done. That is how long the time span for single roads can be. In some municipalities, when you're like, when is this road going to get fixed? I heard money was slated for it. It is, and it is on the way. However, there are 20 construction companies that can do roads that are rated for it in your municipality. They are all working on roads right now that were paid for even further back. That money has been allotted. It is being spent currently to do all those things. That project is in the route. In the route. And a lot of times those projects have to get finished. Have to get finished. So you're like, why are we spending money on this section of highway again and again and again and again and again? It's okay. It's going to blow your mind, but everybody in the fucking city will starve and lose their jobs if that 4-mile chunk of highway is not permanently under construction. Why? Semi-trucks are heavy, so are cars, and they eat through road. If you've never seen how big a road is, and I don't mean wide or long, I mean thick. Roads are thick. Some of them 2 feet thick of fucking concrete, which is crazy high. 2 feet thick. They can be 3. They can be, I think, up to 4 or 5. I don't know. Road technician, please contact your local Department of Transition. I didn't get to write on big highways. I mostly wrote about chip seal. So anybody that just heard me say the words chip seal is either having like oh, okay, that's a moment. Chip seal is literally chips of shit sealed to the ground. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Depends on where you are. Roads have to be X amount of thick because semi-trucks have put an insane amount of force down on the road. Insane. They do more damage to roads than anything, but they are the most necessary aspect of travel in America. This is why it's okay to offset almost all of the payment for highways onto the wealthy or business owners because they get all of the fucking use out of the roads and they do all of the wear. If we reduced road use to no fucking multi-axle vehicle, nothing past 2 axles, the roads that you drive on would last somewhere in the ballpark. I've seen speculation on this of like fucking 6 to 7 times the amount of length of time that they last right now. It's crazy. But roads are like multiple feet thick of concrete and then multiple feet thick of asphalt. The asphalt is usually what's getting stripped up and replaced because it's soft, it's squishy. We're going to run out of asphalt soon, by the way, in the next like 100 years, if you didn't know that, because we're going to run out of tar sand. And those hardball roads are actually a byproduct of stuff. That's why we don't have cinder blocks anymore. If you guys didn't notice that you don't see cinder block buildings, you only see concrete blocks. It's because cinder blocks were made from coal. We don't use coal anymore, so we don't have cinders to make cinder blocks. I've got to write about that sometime. It's absolutely fascinating. But if you lose that 4-mile section of road, that's not even all your responsibility, but it goes in and outside of the city and it gets damaged and people start crashing on it more or they can't travel over it, your entire city can die because that's how all the shit gets into it. Like, and it sounds crazy, but like the shit gets in and out off of those roads. And so you always have to have those economic highways, literally economic highways, earmarked for repair and improvement because otherwise you don't get your fucking tendies shipments in. You do not send out your textiles and whatever the hell else you produce. If you have a completely service economy and you're like, dude, we are all just fucking literally working from home here. You still need that thing to come in so fucking much. And you need it basically also just to repair the other trucks and shit that are on the road. They need to be able to stop, refit, refuel. I'll tell you what, ask any Canadian trucker, good or bad, how important are rest stops? And they'll say, I wish there was a rest stop every fucking mile. Every fucking mile I want a rest stop. Not because the people need to stop every mile, just because the rest stop that's fucking at mile marker 15, at mile marker 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, those are all completely full of sleeper cabs. And I have to go to fucking 22 to get a shower, to take a shit, and then maybe get food that is not microwaved. And I need to sleep there for 6 hours before I drive another 755 miles upland. It's gnarly. So all of the things that you want in your 15-minute city, right? Consider the possibility that your 15-minute city is your 15-minute city and not everybody else's 15-minute city. There's a lot of things that you can change where you're spending the money on to try to get it, depending if you have the money in the first place, to try to get it into the direction of that. Right now in Lexington, which is an unwalkable fucking nightmare, especially once you get out into New Circle Road where I live. Don't worry, you're not going to find me. It's the entire road that goes around Lexington. That entire road is ancient as fuck. Old 1950s style highway architecture. It's a permanent circle that goes around the city, and it has no sidewalks. It's a true strode. Just endless gas stations and dealerships literally in an infinite loop around Lexington. Nightmare. People still live on it. And you see people walking down the side of it every day, and you're like, wow, they should build a fucking sidewalk there immediately. Like, yeah, they should, but they're already building sidewalks. The sidewalks usually start, the easiest place to build them is in the new construction area. Why? Well, when they built New Circle Road, people built businesses all up and down New Circle Road. and they built them right up to what we call an easement. If you guys don't know what the word an easement is, and you talk politics, and especially if you ever say the phrase 15-minute city and you don't know what a fucking easement is, stop talking. Don't just turn this off right now and go look up stuff. Easement is basically the connection between the public property and your property. Easement's where we put light posts, telephone poles, sewage, all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of different issues with easements. They might be this kind of blah, 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 blah. But there's the easement. The easement's only this fucking big, okay? And it is constituted mostly for different types of infrastructure because they didn't plan for the easement to have a sidewalk because this was the outside of the city at some point, and they didn't know that there was going to be a bunch of suburbs out here. There's like 1 or 2 trailers and a few farms. Why the fuck would they build a sidewalk in the 1960s? They just had no concept at all. The road, the businesses have sometimes purchased easements, have sometimes just moved as close as they can. Sometimes they just violate the easement and they build onto or into it in a way where you don't have room anymore. You either have to shrink a road that has to be the width that it is for it to operate, a lot of the times, not all the times, but a lot of the times, or you're going to have to buy private property that is in use by a business. And it might not be like, oh, hey, these businesses need to give it up. Hey there, buddy. You might fuck them over. And literally, there are businesses all the time that get shut down by badly managed construction because the city or whatever will be like, wait, we have to put this here and we have to do this construction. They're like, you fucking eliminated my parking lot and my driveway. I can't get to my business and I still have to pay for, the upkeep of this thing. Like I run a refrigeration warehouse. Like my overhead was okay, but now like no one is going to use my refrigeration warehouse because you shut off the driveway. Can I build it in this direction? Can I build a new driveway in that direction to connect? I'm like, no, this is other private property that is owned by some land development. They built houses over here. That's a retention pond for the same thing in that direction. In this direction, you would have to pay an additional $6 to $7 million in order to bridge a gap that is only 20 feet deep, but still is 15 feet long. So that would be an entire bridge rated for fucking semi-truck transport. And then out our way, we have to shut it down because we have to build this thing. It's very, very hard to plan all these things out. But in Lexington, they are trying to connect the city. They got the gigantic bike trail going on right now. I wish it was anywhere near where I live. Don't try to triangulate where my house is. But like they're building it. So like sometimes it's actually in progress. You just walk outside and because you've been getting your fucking brain vaporized by some streamer for 25 minutes, you think that like, well, I can't walk everywhere in 15 minutes. My city's not focused on walkability at all. Your city's actual whole thing is like, look, we are a fucking tourism economy. All of a sudden, they shut down the goddamn button factory because they sold the button factory to China. We are not going to have button factory fucking money in this city at all anymore. But people really like going downtown to look at the old giant button, and they like drinking over here in the old fucking third button production facility that got turned into a bar. We need this to be walkable right now. And they're like, well, we have literal binding legal contracts for 15 years of tie-up funds that we have to pay for to get this road fixed. That road has to be fixed because it is untravelable and unsafe. So that's all earmarked. If we do a bid process and you want this done, the bid process for our municipality is a minimum of 1 year. And that's after we establish what we want. Have we done any research on how we want it to be accomplished? Like, I haven't done anything. I just want a 15-minute city. Like, okay, so you just want something, but you don't know how to get it? Yeah. Okay, well, once your mom changes your diaper, why don't you come down to City Hall and we'll fucking run things over for you. You got to hire fact finders. You got to hire, which also you have to bid for. We have to bid out a city planning organization. If we don't have city planners that have already had this figured out, we're going to have to get them in. Figure out what we can do and what we can move around in the city in order to accomplish this. Unless you have a big enough city that you have that as a permanent part of the city, then you might already have those plans in. But then again, you're already going to have them earmarked. We have these things that are going on. If you want this to connect here and this to connect here, these are now private roadways. They are owned by this company. They bought them for us for a song in 1985. Why did we sell them to them? Well, because our mayor at the time was a fucking alcoholic piece of shit and he shot himself after he got arrested for corruption, but it doesn't unsell those roads. So those roads belong to someone else now. We can't do anything with the city unless we buy them from them. Well, who owns them? A company in China. They bought them from the guy's widow after he shot himself. She sold the road. He sold the road to his own wife. Okay, that's very illegal. Yeah, it is. But unfortunately, the law is what it is. So they want to sell us the roads, actually, which is cool. They just want $1.5 million for exactly 35 feet of road. Okay, well, can we just steal that from them? We can. We can use public domain. However, that is going to be a roughly 5 to 8 year process in order to let them take the time to be notified and have their lawyers run through the entire thing. We might not win, but we'll probably win. Okay, cool. So that's just to get one sidewalk built from the main downtown area over there? Yes. What about all of these really dangerous buildings in this horrible neighborhood? Okay, well, those are all private domiciles. So we can be upset about it if we want, but that's basically where somebody thought that they were going to make $10 billion off of Airbnb, but they created a suburban slum for us instead. All right, so do we want people to walk around there? Well, no, Mr. Mayor. We want people to be able to walk through there. The people that live there are still people. Are they? Yes. Yeah, yes. Please don't say that outside of council chambers, Mr. Mayor. Jesus fucking Christ. We still want the thing to go through there. We think it'll actually probably fix the neighborhood up better than almost anything else we can think of. So we want that to go through there. Okay, cool. Put all that together. All right. The bid's going to come in about 3 years. They'll have all of this planning and stuff done. And then from there, we can run that up through council because all of these measures have to be taken care of by city council. By the way, if John fucking Hitler Smith gets elected, more than likely he's going to vote all this down and then it's never going to fucking happen. Okay, but what if he doesn't? Cool. Your term ends in 2 years, so you can get fucked. We're going to have a new guy, whoever the fuck gets elected. He's going to pick up a piece of paper that you ordered 3 or 4 years ago, and then he's going to decide if that's part of his mission to make it happen. What if he doesn't? Oh, then we wasted that money and it's gone forever. What we do is we put the fact-finding report on a shelf, and we pretend that we didn't spend $3.2 million trying to figure out how to build sidewalks. That sounds insane. Yeah, that sounds insane. But trust me, it's literally better than the other possibilities. Okay, so what happens assuming that I get someone elected that's like me and wants this to happen? Glad that you asked. Well, they have to go through a bid process once we decide how we're going to proceed through it. The project is probably going to take 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 different little sections, and I know this sounds like a little bit untoward, and I shouldn't say this outside of the council chambers, but we're going to go to the rich neighborhoods first because that's where the higher tax-paying taxpayers are. We want them to be really happy because every time they get even mildly butthurt that poor people are getting shit before they do, they try to get fucking John Hitler Smith elected, and it's always a fucking nightmare dealing with them. So we're going to build off of their really nice areas. It's also easier to build over there because a lot of new development. So it's all tied in really well. It's kind of harder to fix all of these sidewalks that were built by racists in 1952 because they don't have any standoff from the buildings that they're a part of. We're probably going to have to actually end vehicle traffic in a few of these areas to allow people to walk safely. People walk safely through there now? No, it's really dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. Little kids get hit in that neighborhood all the time. Do people not care? Oh, no. It's a black neighborhood. They don't give a shit. Yeah, I think we had 3 kids run down in that fucking school. No one gives a fuck. But we're going to get white people moving in there once this gets nice, and then they're going to definitely want the fucking sidewalks to be bigger. They're going to say, how the fuck was things ever like this? And then they're just never going to notice why it was. Okay, so that gets done. Then we start construction. Yes. We get the bids done. The bids come in. We start construction. Construction will be stalled. More than likely, things that we thought were possible are going to fail. We're going to find out that over there on 6th Street, the $1.3 million thing, we actually got that pushed through. And we eminent a domain, and China can get fucked, and we got it for free because they just never picked up their phone call, so we just stole their property. And it's ours again now, which is cool. The bad thing is for some reason, people tied the wall of the building into the street in a way that if we move the street at all, a 40,000-ton brick building will collapse. The building's going to collapse either way, but people are really in love with the graffiti on the side of it. Somebody put a male pouch tobacco advertisement on the side of that, and apparently the person that painted it was the coolest fucking idiot ever that lived here, and they all really want to save that, so they are fighting you tooth and fucking nail to get that thing knocked down. The people that live in the neighborhood don't want that thing knocked down. Isn't it dangerous? Oh no, the people in the neighborhood fucking hate it. It's some yuppie kids from the college. They're down here. They're fucking mad as shit. They want that building to stay up forever, okay, because they like the male pouch tobacco sign that sits over houses that aren't theirs. Okay. Can we fast forward this? Yeah, we're going to fast forward about 3.5 years. Most of it is in place. It's not all tied in yet. There's 3 or 4 extra chunks of the project that are getting moved because we found out that 4 or 5 little different neighborhoods popped up because guess what happened? The needle factory started up that we didn't even realize was going to come here. Somebody decided to move a needle factory here. And by somebody, I mean the RJ Puff and Stuff company from fucking Mumbai, India, decided to start a factory, and they put it over here, and we had to completely reorganize the entirety of our city planning on the north side of the city to connect that to everything. And they gave us $750 million to do it. So that became a very big priority. Parts of our area now go nowhere because that company also bought up 2 neighborhoods that were the shitty ones, right? We thought they would get gentrified and revitalized. Actually, he just bought them up and bulldozed them so that they could build a highway. So we have one chunk of this that goes straight into a highway now. Sorry. The rest of it's getting connected pretty well. So we should be done here in about 3.5 to 4 years because we found out one chunk of it was built over a subsidence that we did not have in our geological records. That area fucking fell into the ground and it was a landfall. And now it's full again because we filled it. And we're going to build a big sidewalk and a park into it. It's going to have a splash pad. People are psyched. Okay. The actual mayor in this has died from old age. It has been 16 years, but everything is fucking there. No one's happy about it the entire time. But this is how long it takes projects to get done in America, especially sprawling ones that involve multiple areas of property. You're really lucky if you live out in the Midwest, actually, because there's so much space to expand to. Like in Williston, North Dakota, it wasn't that much of a fucking knockdown slaughterfest blood fight to get their area recreation center built. It was only just a nightmare for everyone that had been involved in it until it was complete over the course of like 5 or 6 or 7 years. Anywhere else, it's gnarly, but that's just a minimum. I'm not making shit up that much. Like literally, I'm just going over a bunch of things that I remember having talked about different construction projects in my head when I wrote for the news. And it's all over the place. So just understand that is how difficult it is to get shit changed. And if you get elected under promises of instantaneous success, the success will never be instantaneous. This is why we very frequently have people do the 1-2, the old political 1-2 in America. Do you know what the political 1-2 in America is? Get elected and then say the streets are safer because I gave the cops more money. That's the 1-2. Hey, I got nothing for you, but the cops made an arrest. So we'll fucking win. Huh. That's the American political 1-2. Every fucking person in America thinks that the American crime rate is the highest it's ever been. Like literally all of them. I know that's not a real stat. Every American can be convinced right now, even you knowing better can probably be convinced in a little bit of a fucking kerfuffle that the crime rate is insane, right? Or that the crime is too high in a specific area. That's the perfect one, because that one's never really perfectly provable. Because whatever, some gang fight happens and, they shoot a gun, they miss, a 13-year-old kid gets killed at a bus stop. Fuck. Literal tragedy. Actual nightmare. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Now what we're going to do instead, because you guys wanted the fucking walkable city, okay? Look, I just talked to a guy and you have no idea how I will be in the fucking dirt before this happens. This is why great societies are the ones where old men plant trees that they'll never sit under the shade. If you've ever heard, that's what all this is. So you don't get the 15-minute city. You're fighting for some kid that you'll never see to get the 15-minute city. Understand that about politics, especially if you're a fucking leftist. But the thing that you can do if you want to fucking stroke off your fucking electorate is say like, hey, we are fixing the crime problem downtown. Just say it like that. I have found that the crime problem downtown is out of control. And we have earmarked, because you can always give the cops money. A police department is a giant pit that can never be filled with enough money. We are giving the police $1 million to do thing, right? If you have a red electorate that you don't have to worry about, a conservative electorate, say that we're spending that money on crime interdiction, right? We're buying new drug computers to make sure the drugs don't drug the way that they've been drugging. If you have a blue constituency, what you say is we're spending that money on body cameras or on training to make sure that your police you in the way that feels more like a pillow instead of a knife to the eye. And that's what you do. It's the old fucking American 1-2 punch. Whap, whap. There's crime downtown, and I spent money on it. Hey, this guy's really doing something for us. And a lot of times, sometimes you have to be callous and just do that shit anyway as an elected official, because your electorate is stupid and disinterested, and they're hyper-focused on one thing that you cannot do. They are kind of impressed by a thing you didn't do. Someone else did, but it got finished while you were there, and so you went like... And they're like... Politics is very, very confusing. So this is just understand, if you're a lefty, a hardcore lefty, this is first off a thing that you can always beat tankies and shit on. Tankies don't give a fuck about it. Tankies don't know anything. The transition into a tankie comes from being literally too stupid to understand how policy works and just utopianizing all of your political desires into the idea that someday someone that looks like me and is as hot and tall as me is going to say communism now, and then just kill all of your enemies, and then underpants gnomes 15-minute city. Like that's what the tanky mentality is. And that for all of you righties out there, this is why you kind of, maybe when you don't have any of us to get mad about, feel like your right-wing dudes are jerking you off, because they keep telling you that it's going to be, I don't know, maybe the evil policy that you want, but a lot of times like, we need to bring jobs back, and then you just, the jobs ain't back. You know what I mean? Like, damn, you guys really said that you were going to knock drugs down, but I swear to God, you can get fucking fentanyl from the cops these days. So what the fuck are y'all doing? And that's kind of really what it boils down to. I'm glad we had this talk, by the way. That's why gas prices are the rage all the time. Yeah, because the gas prices are easy as fuck to control, by the way. Gas prices go down because the government wastes money on gas. That's just a fact. You can look it up more deeply, but basically, gas is heavily subsidized. Do you guys know what a subsidy is? Subsidy is when you get something for free because other people paid for it. Subsidy is socialism. True socialism. It really is. Most socialism in America, this is why ANCAPs are upset all the time, goes to corporations. The vast majority of it. Our corn industry is subsidized out the fucking zoo, right? Which it needs to be. Unironically, food production needs to remain permanently subsidized. Should probably be subsidized more in different ways, because food isn't something you need until you need it, and once you have enough of it, the price of it plummets so much that you create starvation baronies, basically. So, in order to create a society that is not always on the verge of famine, you have to take the ability of you have to take the likelihood of price fluctuation out of food to the utmost extent that you can. Literally make too much food for everybody and throw some of it away, because the other possibility is people starving like crazy. Instantly, you can lose, like, in a year, 90% of your population. Shout out Ukraine. Shout out Ireland. And so, food industries are heavily subsidized. It doesn't mean that all the subsidies are good. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that everyone that's getting mad about the corn industry and corn syrup. There's a lot of subsidies that go to agriculture, and they are not all for the food themselves. They are for science, they're for production, they're to keep steel prices down. Sometimes the subsidies that you see are like tertiary, quaternary to things, and it just helps. Roads are subsidized in America like crazy. You can tell that too, because the road that the farmer uses to move his fucking combine from fucking paddock 1A392 to 1A396, he uses the fucking highway, not the shitty little fucking beat road that he's got in the middle of his corn. You know what I mean? Those roads that the farmers build are always those dirt monstrosities. Fucking cow pressure roads. Now, the most subsidized thing in America is corn. It's why it's in everything, because we literally eat the corn. They can't feed to the cattle fast enough, so they turn it into syrup. Based. The thing is food can go off too. That, like, food, literally. Food can fall off in value crazy quick, because once everybody's fed, you don't think about how hungry you are, you know what I mean, until you're hungry again. Which is why the people's approach to food when they're rich versus people like where I'm from, their approach to food seems a lot different. If you can make money, the amount of money that you can make when people are well fed is not off food is not as much as you can make when they're starved. So you have to fucking subsidize the farmers and that entire industry at least a little bit, because they'll find that actually if we create artificial demand through famine, we can charge a lot more for a lot less work. So you have to subsidize food. You have to do socialism. Hardcore, literal socialism for food, or people will starve to death in your country within the year. Almost instantly. But yeah, meat, poultry, we subsidize everything food. All food subsidies are fine as far as I'm concerned. They start in a moral place, and then you have to work back from making them immoral. There's a reason that ag-gag laws exist, and it is because people are stupid as fuck. Shout out all my Australians who know what I might know what I'm about to talk about. When y'all fucking almost destroyed your entire strawberry industry over somebody saying that they found a needle in a strawberry. You guys remember that? That actually almost completely killed the entire fucking strawberry industry in Australia. I'm 99% sure that's Australia. If I'm wrong, please correct me. And it was so fucking bad. It was so fucking bad for agriculture in general, because it has a knock-on effect of, well, if my strawberry's got a needle in it, how do I know my cream corn ain't got one? And it created such an insane knock-on effect that, like, people's surety in food fell. And it almost destroyed entire, like, supermarket chains, and a lot of, like, family farms were, like, deeply affected. Because once people don't want to buy the food, if you don't subsidize it, it rots. And then they have to, usually, if you don't know this about farmers, I'm sorry I'm giving you guys so many fucking civics lessons in one day. Most farmers make food on credit. The food that you made is made on credit. It's actually gambling. If you actually live out in the sticks, if you live within walking distance of a grain elevator, you know more about this from birth than I do. So shout out. But there's farm banks. They got a specific name for it, but basically every fucking small town, this is why you have to even have small towns out in the sticks, has a bank. And at that bank, it's the fucking ag, farmers insurance, farmers united, farmers co-op, whatever. You go in there every year and they speculate on how much money you might make on corn. And you say, hey, I need this much money to make this much corn this year. Money goes into a lot of different stuff. Goes into keeping your tractor up, goes into help paying the taxes on your farm, goes into help with this, that, transport, seed is a lot of it. All these sorts of things. And then you say, I will take that money out and then I'm going to pay you back at the end of the year. So you have to speculate from growing season all the way out to payoff after harvest. And you got to pay them back. Otherwise you can lose the farm. That's where it comes from. And there's a lot of different aspects and ways that that's done. It changes crop to crop to crop to crop, but it's one of the biggest reasons that a lot of farms in America do not try to monoculture. They might have a key crop. You know what I mean? Like, we are a soy farm, but we have also we got 30 head of dairy cow, and we also have a pretty fucking powerful apiary. I can't ever say that word right. And during the summer, we grow a whole fucking bunch of goddamn pumpkins, and we sell pumpkins and stuff. So you got to mix it all up. What about the needle factory? The needle factory made it, man. All small town farmers are basically broke. I have never met a farmer who has enough cash survived season without loans to make sure they can buy supplies for the year. It does depend. Othar says, depends on the farm. A lot of farmers in Illinois aren't that indebted. It really does depend. And it can go all over the place. It can depend. Sometimes the thing about a farm is it's a small business. So just literally think of any individual you know. Think about streamers. Literally. Think about the streamers that you know and turn their stream into a farm. Same thing. Literally the same thing. Different sizes, different crops, different abilities. But sometimes you're like, damn, you motherfuckers cannot... You live out... I'm very happy that I got to live out in the true Midwest for a little bit and hear farmers talk shit, because God, that man can't fucking grow corn to save his life. I can't even remember the fucking insults they would throw around. They're very polite, and you have to like know what they're talking about. But, you know, fucking like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's the John family. He's like, yeah, he's a nice enough guy, but if he ever tries to talk about soy, just ignore everything he says, you know. If that man ever tries to tell you what a sugar beet, that man couldn't get sugar from a sugar beet if his life depended on it. All that stuff. It's fucking crazy. But like there's different levels of skill, you know, and some farmers really are fucking like, because they're bad at it. Some farmers are really good at it, but they're only good at it because they cheat a lot, and that ends up fucking over people that are around them. So you have like farmers are always fucking like half ready to kill someone that's on a farm next to them over some shit. Maybe not all the time. Sometimes you're lucky. You're like, my 1,000 acres of red Angus and black Angus are safe, and I love that I'm between the McCall family and the Surge family. Love him to death. And the Surge family's like, I hate that motherfucker. I hate him like you wouldn't believe. That goddamn cow. I'd fucking shoot him in a goddamn heartbeat if I wouldn't go to jail. Motherfucking goddamn thing. Told him, I put up that fence. I put up that fence. This goddamn word. I know his boy come out here and cut that fence. I put up that fence myself. I know his boy came out. You know how hard it is? Tighten up a goddamn barbed wire fence. I know his boy came out and cut that fence. They got them goddamn cows up in my motherfucking soybeans, trampling my goddamn ground. No, it wouldn't even be soy. You know what it would be? It would be fucking winter wheat. Damn goddamn cows rooting up my winter wheat seeds. Every farmer lives by the words and a hold for now. True. But you got to do all kinds of fucking conflict mitigation and shit. But it's crazy. But it needs to happen. Subsidies are everywhere, man. Subsidies are everywhere. How gas subsidies work is basically the same sort of way. And gas subsidies have to happen too. Because energy cannot be permitted to fluctuate. The two things that make the world go around economically, the two most important things happening at any given time in our modern society are food and energy transfer. Because food is just energy anyway. They are critical. And anything that is making them happen must be supported. You guys wonder why we go to war for oil? It's because oil's worth killing people for. I know that sounds fucking crazy, but like literally you haven't lived in a world where you didn't have the oil. You're speaking from a position of privilege when you're like, I don't think it's right to kill people for anything. Like, it puts you in Mad Max world where all of a sudden, like, fuck air conditioning. You don't have fucking hospitals that have power for more than 3 hours a day. You're like, I think I could stand a war. I think I could stand a war. Energy has to go. There are criminals and stuff within it, but energy has to be subsidized. It has to be energy production to some degree. That doesn't mean that every subsidy is good. If a subsidy doesn't accomplish what it's supposed to accomplish or it's inefficient, it should be changed, removed, whatever. But the existence of energy subsidies overall, pretty much a good thing because you don't want the market to fluctuate because you will have the same thing that happens with food. Basically, people will start reducing how much energy that you get. They'll create false scarcity. You have to have socialism because otherwise the capitalists will create false scarcity and use it to drive up the prices like crazy. You want the low cost at the pump is not a low cost. This is the other thing I was getting at. The gas industry gets subsidized from the top down. You guys don't know how gas works, by the way. It starts in the ground as oil. Congratulations, you've now learned it. The extraction cost is a net calculation per barrel. If you've lived anywhere from the tippity top of North Dakota all the way down to the toxic coast in Texas, you have probably come across this. Shout out all my Oklahomans. Y'all don't get enough fucking notice. Oklahoma motherfuckers know all about oil. Then no one ever gives them credit for it. God bless Oklahoma. Ain't it? It's in the ground, right? There's a cost per barrel. If the cost per barrel isn't sufficiently high enough that the cost of extraction, if that net cost isn't high enough, they'll leave it there because they own it and they'll pay taxes on land, but you can't really pay that much taxes on the assumption of how much gas is on the ground. I think there's been some arguments to that, but it's like, get fucked. Like, I have my mineral rights, but until my mineral rights are used, it's not really tangible, and you kind of don't want a tax on the possibility of it. You could, but you're just going to end up in a situation where you pull all the fucking gas out of the ground, and the second gas is out or oil is out of the ground, it starts going bad because it is organic. Gas goes bad. A lot of diesel can go bad. Some of the chemicals that come out that we use for stuff will just start disintegrating into the air. This is something you should consider because it's going to happen to your kids. Kids are going to run out of fucking oil byproducts. And then all of a sudden they're going to be like, let's see what we can get from these microplastics. We'll start pulling microplastics out of people. Oh my God, oil is like grass. Thanks, Tyler. Actually, unironically, yes. The argument, if I remember it correctly, and if you are in petrochemical stuff, please feel free to correct me. But basically, the argument is literally that. If I have an acre, right, and that acre has literally, and we can't get it out, it has 700 barrels of oil underneath it that I can pull up, but it also has 700 harvests worth of wheat on it. Why? Because I have all of this asset under the ground that I still have to put my labor into and extract. Why should that asset be taxable in a way that's different than the potential assets of growing crop on it, especially because I can't foresee all the possibilities that come. So that's it literally is. It's a unextracted resource. So it's a hypothetical, because you might think that there's 700 barrels under there, and there might actually be 1,200. There might actually only be 50. You never really know until you start pulling stuff out. So if they find out that the sale cost of a barrel is less than the cost, they're not going to do it at all. So you try to mitigate the cost for the extraction in order to make the extraction more palpable. And you don't always want to be drill, baby, drill. Not always. Even the drillers will be like, not right now. OPEC fucking just opened a new oil field. We're going to let them burn that down into the world surplus before we open our stuff. Because I might be sitting on a potential $1 billion. If I pull it out now, I'm actually only sitting on 250. If I speculate and wait for the perfect time, I might be sitting on 2.9 billion, $3.6 billion worth of oil instead of this. So there's a lot of speculation that goes in there, and that stuff's not necessarily bad. Yeah, it's speculation. Yeah, it's capitalism. But unironically, it's kind of the best way to do things because it's such a complicated fucking mix of stuff that you got to give the hats off to the people that think about it all the fucking time, as opposed to the people that think about it literally never. So you want to try to drive down that cost per barrel, right? Let's say a barrel is $100 total on the market, which is insanely fucking high. Barack Obama's biggest thing that he did while he was in office, some other thing, you might be thinking about gay marriage and shit. Barack Obama opened fracking up in the oil fields in America at the most perfect fucking time possible. Like, you really have no idea how bad Hillary Clinton fucked everything up. Oil producers liked Barack Obama. They liked the Democratic Party for a second, and then all that shit basically went away because I feel like sometimes like Hillary Clinton doesn't know shit about shit. She's like a foreign policy expert as far as I know, and her foreign policy has been terrible, which is one of the biggest reasons to not vote for her. Other than that, it's just like, yeah, she's nice as far as you're concerned to like minorities or something. Like she'll say that, but then she'll fuck up everybody's jobs and like kill people overseas kind of ruthlessly. So I don't know how far that can go. But he opened up the oil boom the perfect time. The price per barrel, I think, when I went to the Bakken, skyrocketed to something like $125 per, and then it was like at 80 or something for the rest of it. I can't remember exactly. You can look these numbers up. The barrel cost is always different too. The cost per barrel is the trade. So to take that barrel and then refineries buy it, or this person or that person buys it, that's the cost, the cost per barrel. And then you put against that the extraction cost. Fracking extraction costs are the highest oil, I'm pretty sure the highest oil extraction costs of any type of oil extraction, because it's the last kind of oil extraction that you can really do. Oil turns into a lot of products. Different types of oil turns into different types of products too, because it has different amounts of shit in it. So, it might have more gas than normal because of this formation just has more gas in this area, or it got broken up. And then you have to take it off to refinery. So just at that point, they were making a fuckload per, and they all knew it was going to go away here very shortly because OPEC got fucking butthurt about it, and OPEC dropped the price of barrels on their market. It's one of the only markets that America is not completely in control of, is the oil market, because OPEC has it over there. Then you got the petrodollar, and all that shit's even more complicated than I can fucking get into. But what you do to subsidize it is plan against exterior use. So if the exterior forces are selling it, you try to basically negotiate the best possible price for yourself by doing bulk wholesale, this, that, and the other. And then you try to subsidize the industry here and there all the way down. So in America, you pull out the oil, you send it to a refinery maybe, and then maybe you get gasoline. Maybe you send it somewhere else. Sometimes you send it to Canada because somebody's already bought the oil, like a Canadian refinery has bought the oil, so we got to send the oil to Canada. Canadian oil field has sold its oil to an American refinery. They got to send it down to America. Trains are going everywhere. Pipelines are going everywhere. Vehicles are going everywhere. It's all over the fucking place. But basically, all along that line, you fucking subsidize it. You pay for roads. You try to decrease the overall cost of how much trucks cost. You're on the Republican side of things, especially, you try to decrease the amount of regulation that people have to pass, because that always decreases the overall price of stuff, because regulations basically require you to slow down at different places. They require, literally almost all the time, a regulation will require some aspect of redundancy and slowdown is basically what you can always find in God damn it, I just said that word. In that word. Basically, like, hey, your vehicles cannot go over 80 miles an hour. Your trains cannot go over 55 miles an hour when they're carrying type A crude or whatever the fuck. And then they say, like, nah, man, get that shit up to 95, 150. That goes especially into North Dakota, because they had what they were called Bakken bombs. The Bakken oil shale formation was so fucking put out oil that was so unstable and so sulfurous that if it crashed, it would explode everywhere and cause just untold amounts of damage. But you try to subsidize everything on the way down. The way to spend money to subsidize stuff is one way. That's usually the Democratic way, literally. We spend money to subsidize. The Republican way is we reduce restrictions in order to subsidize. So basically, both times you're getting the overall marker to right where you want for cost and sale. You know what I mean? Like, so our net, we want to have our net. So do we increase subsidies in order to make all of these things better and cut their costs? Or do we let them cut costs by reducing restrictions against them? Or sometimes just a mix of both. And sometimes the restrictions are overly redundant and they are excessive. And sometimes they're very, very necessary. And sometimes the subsidies... Sometimes the subsidies are way too sweetheart and way too overpaid, and sometimes they don't even go in the right direction. So, like, kind of how do you figure out? But the subsidies that go into your dollar price per barrel of oil is kind of a good marker of how good of a president is, because it is really a marker of how well they understand the economy and international trade in order to keep the American oil price somewhere in the ballpark of where an American thinks it should be. Because the American does not know the actual price of a barrel of oil. Generally, you don't know the price of a gallon of gas. You think it's $3.25, which is like roughly the same cost that it's been since I was in fucking high school. It was like $2, you know what I mean? It's an insanely low increase compared to the price of fucking everything else. The reason is because you're not paying that. Your tax money is reducing it overall here and there throughout. But the cool thing about that is, if you are poorer, that subsidy works out for you, all right? If you're richer and you use more oil and stuff anyway because you're in production, then you are going to be paying more of the at the gas pump price than everyone else. So it's kind of a neat thing for there to exist, because you're using the overall tax burden of America to reduce the price of oil. So, you know, when it gets down to it, when you're paying for the roads, you're paying for the trucks, or trying to help pay for the trucks, reducing this, paying for that, it eventually gets a product where the American populace can look at a number and say, like, hey, this president's pretty good at doing the one thing I need him to do. And it kind of works, because for you to get the price of oil and the price of gasoline ultimately down to that thing, you have to be able to fucking, you know, if you tax rich people, you can accomplish that. And then you can keep the energy prices that the average American needs to do their fucking job low, because that gas price is extremely important. Less important now, right now, because so many people are working from home, but especially all of the older people, older even by my standards. I remember when basically any goddamn given day of work was fucking 2 or 3 gallons of gas cost for you. So, like, that's a thing that people calculate. By the way, if you are from somewhere that's lucky enough to have robust public transportation, or it's very, very small and you can walk and ride to school from New York or something, shut the fuck up about gas prices if you don't have to buy gas and you don't live in that kind of area, because you will fucking alienate people like crazy. I had a job once where I had to drive 2 hours to work. I lived in Hampton Roads and I had to drive to fucking Virginia Beach every day. And when I was in Virginia Beach, I had to use my car anyway because I worked at car dealerships installing aftermarket parts, one of deep Tyler lore. And that shit was so fucking expensive that I was getting paid $12 an hour at the time. This is 2015, 2016. I was getting paid $12 an hour, mostly under the table. And really, when you calculated the gas costs, my time during the day that was taken up was not the 8 hours I was at work. It was 12 plus hours because of how difficult it is to get to the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. Shout out everybody in the Chesapeake Bay area who knows what I'm talking about and just went like, no. No. It's a like fucking 1.5 mile, 2 mile long tunnel and bridge combo that constantly gets fucking completely clogged up. Sometimes catches on fire because of cars. That gas price was also extremely high because it was something like fucking 10 miles of driving, but that was my job. I couldn't find a job in Hampton Roads. I found that job in Virginia Beach. And so like what I was really making was closer to like fucking $9 or $10. If you really count the 4 hours, I was making something along the lines of about $8 to $10 an hour. When you extrapolate out for all of the costs and stuff that I had during the day, which is nuts. So if there would have been an election at that time, it was the lead up to 2016. But if I would have seen gas prices go from like whatever it was at the time, maybe $3.10, $3.15 in that area, it might have actually been kind of high, $4 or something. If I would have seen those go up to like $7 or $8 per gallon, it would have bankrupted me. I would have literally not even been able to work because the cost of going to work would have been higher than everything else. Either way, that's a good place to end things.
Hope you enjoyed your time on the Westside.